Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast.
Two women with 50 years plus of marketing
Integrity
experience.
and culture are extremely important.
You can still say, I don't know.
Stop multitasking and be present in the
Moms
moment.
have balls, big time.
Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. We are two women with more than 50 years of marketing and advertising experience between us, and we want to talk about the struggles, the fails, and the wins that we experienced while building our careers, being a boss, juggling work and a home life, and arguably the hardest and yet most fulfilling job, being a mom. This podcast was created for marketing and advertising professionals, especially the up-and-coming marketing stars of the future. We hope these tips, tricks, and advice will help you navigate work and life and get ahead. Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. This is our first episode of 2022. Kelly and I have taken a much needed break over the holidays. We hope you have too. And what better way to start off 2022 with an episode about burnout? Because I think we all needed a break over the holidays because we were all burnt out, unfortunately. Anyways, we're very excited about our 2022 lineup on the Two Marketing Moms podcast. Kelly and I have spent some time over the holidays planning for a lot of great episodes.
So we've been wanting to talk about this for months because we've been feeling it. And today's episode is called Tools to Avoid Burnout.
Our wonderful guest is Aneta Kuzma, and she is the CEO and founder of the Ardelian Kuzma Group, a coaching and wellness consulting business. We all need you in our lives, Aneta. After a successful 25-year corporate career, Aneta combined her passion for yoga, meditation, coaching, mindfulness, and business to help professionals and entrepreneurs to live fully and create lives of purpose, passion, and peace. Oh, the 3 Ps. I love that. So welcome to the podcast, Aneta.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
I got to tell you, I mean, I went like 2021 was like this, really feeling great, totally burnt out, really feeling great, totally burnt out. And like, then I already see these memes that are like, you can't fix burnout with a bubble bath and a glass of wine. And I'm like, well, maybe that's the first step.
Yeah.
When you can't leave your house, that's the other problem too, right?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Burnout is really the chronic stress. So it is chronic. It's something that's been building up for a long time and we feel it, right? By the time we get to the state of burnout, it's not a surprise. You don't wake up one day and go, gosh, I felt so great. And all of a sudden I really don't. It's not like that, right? It's the constant. And so when people say, what do I do? And I said, let's start with your basic needs. Like really, it goes back to what are you eating? Are you drinking your water? Are you moving your body? Are you getting some sunshine? And are you sleeping? If you are not doing those things, yes, maybe the bubble bath won't be as effective, right? But let's start with the basic things. Let's make sure you're using the restroom when you need to go, right? Instead of when you're on these calls for 10 hours. So that's usually the first thing that I say. Let's examine what you're doing, with your basic needs first and foremost.
And if people aren't doing those things, right? Because I'm sure that people skip going to the bathroom because they're just too busy, right?
Right.
How do you go about, addressing those needs off the bat? Because I do think that some of those definitely fall by the wayside.
They do. And the first thing I always tell everyone is you have to invest in yourself. And especially for women, I have male and female clients and across the board, I think women have a much harder time saying, my needs are important. I'm going to make sure that those basic needs are met. Even the word self-care, right? People kind of laugh at it, but it is really about taking care of yourself as the entire person. And so I love to always talk about optimal health. And I don't know if that's a term that's really used that often or if people understand it, but optimal health doesn't mean that you're not burned out or that you don't have a disease. It means that you are healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, right? We cannot compartmentalize ourselves. And when we do, we get ourselves into trouble, right? Like we're really productive, but I can't sleep. Or, I feel like my marriage is really great, but I hate my job. Like all these things, they make up a life. There's one life. It's not separate lives. And when we try to separate these things and we don't focus on ourselves as a whole person, that's when we start to find ourselves in trouble, either not feeling great, we might be sick, we might not feel the great, maybe we're having emotional responses, yelling at our kids, yelling at our partner, snapping at work, or in the great resignation, people are fleeing their jobs, right? Yeah. And what I've seen is that number will probably continue to grow even this year.
Well, I have a lot of questions with regards to the topic of optimal health, but I wanted to take a step back because you started your business in 2019 yeah. And it seems like the perfect time to start a personal consulting, coaching, business consulting business pre-pandemic because people obviously needed it desperately in 2020. The last 2 years. So talk to us a little bit about how you started that coaching business. What was the impetus? And then what are you seeing, what makes your coaching unique versus some of the other coaches that we've talked to? And we'll talk a little bit later about, what are the main things that you're seeing and hearing from the people that you're talking to over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I always ask myself this question because people say, oh, you joined at the right time. And I always say, gosh, if I knew that I was starting a business January of 2019, so excited, so eager, and a year later, the floor would drop from under us, would I still have done it? And I don't know that I would have, to be quite honest. I think that because I pivoted in my business, right? I was definitely someone who lived with a lot of fear. I was burned out for a long time in my career. I graduated school and thought, okay, here's the corporate ladder. Here's what I need to do. I'm going to, do everything I need to do, follow the rules, go up to the next level, accept all these challenges, et cetera. And I found myself at a place where I really wasn't happy or satisfied. I was definitely unhealthy. I'm probably healthier now, almost at 50 than I was when I was 35 in the midst of all of it, trying to raise children, be a good wife, all of these things, these roles that we play and continue to do well at work. And I knew I wanted to make a change. So once my kids were getting a little bit older, they were going off to college. I said, you know what, now I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to say, what do I want to do? Because I haven't asked myself that question probably since early 20s or maybe ever, to be quite honest, right? And so I engaged with a personal coach myself. I have a friend who's an executive coach, and I said, you got to help me. I need to figure out what I want to do next. I didn't want to retire from where I was. I was in banking for a long time. It was, I had all the coolest jobs, I say, at the organization I worked with. I worked with amazing people. That wasn't the issue. It just wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And when I fell in love with the coaching process. And so I knew that I wanted to build something that tied in all of my passions. And for me, that was health and wellness. I've been a yoga practitioner for many years, started getting deeper into meditation just as a way to save myself. I was trying to move from surviving to thriving. And then I thought, okay, I got it. I have it figured out. I know what I'm going to do. And then the day after my last day at work, I immediately started my business. Like 2 days later, started my LLC. And then I had a moment of like, oh no, I made this decision. What am I going to do next? But I engaged, started the coaching programs, got certified in life coaching, executive coaching, health and wellness coaching. I had received my yoga teacher training and my meditation a couple of years prior. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, I knew I needed to shift. People were definitely not going to come in person for coaching. Zoom was something we may have heard of, right? It wasn't like a word that we use 100 times a day like we do today. And the virtual remote working was still kind of new. And so I noticed a need for mental health, and I started a meditation group. I started a meditation group in March of 2020. I think we were asked to stay home on the 17th of March. The following Monday, I started my meditation group. I kind of put it out there and said, whoever needs this, I'm here. Let's gather together. And I did it for 5 days. I did Monday through Friday. And then people were like, can you start doing this on the weekends too? So on Saturdays and Sundays, I was teaching 7 days a week. We were coming together, and that group continues to meet to this day. I thought it was going to be a temporary thing. I did it for like 6 weeks and said, do you guys want to continue to do this? Because we weren't going back to work. The world was not going back to the way it was. And this amazing community has continued to grow and stay together. And it's just seriously one of the biggest joys of my life. And then the other thing I noticed was, companies, people, friends that were in the corporate world were saying, hey, things are really hard. Our routines are disrupted. Our mental health is not in a great place. What can we do? And so I created like a presentation on how to emerge stronger during this time period. And I just started calling HR people that I knew at organizations and said, are your folks struggling? What are you doing? I created this content. I'm willing to do it for free. I just want to help people. And I did these sessions for, everyone said yes. Nobody said, oh, no, thanks. We've got it all figured out. They said, okay, please. And so I started building content, and that was sort of the start of my wellness consulting part of my business. I did that. And then people said, can you do more? And guess what? We'll pay you. We want to be able to do this. We realized that wellness is not, monitoring steps and checking your blood pressure anymore. It has to really go back to, that optimal health definition. And that's how I pivoted. So what I thought I would do in my business has really kind of transformed and just pivoted along with what was happening in our environment. And now we just celebrated 3 years in this past January. So yeah, a couple days ago.
So what are the main themes of what you're hearing, collectively from people? I mean, do you have mostly women, a combination of women and men?
Yeah, it's a combination of women and men, which was surprising. I always thought that most of my clients would be me. I'm like, if there's an avatar, I was my avatar, right? And then, but I will say that my clients they're professionals and entrepreneurs, and average age is between 40 and 55. And the interesting thing, surprising thing about the men was that I had one client who said, why are you surprised that men would come to you for coaching? And I said, I don't know. I just thought men wouldn't necessarily do this. And he said, we grew up with coaches. He goes, we've been playing sports. We've had coaches since we were young. We never expect to be able to do something on our own. Why would you think that and it was such a interesting thought. And I was like, oh, that's true. And so it's interesting because women sometimes we are the last people to ask for help. And so when the men came to me, was interesting, was early COVID days. Men were like, okay, I'm stressed and I'm home, and now I have to deal with childcare and homeschooling and things maybe I didn't have to deal with before. And so they were like early on, okay, I'm going to do meditation. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And then the women came usually at the point of complete burnout, when they were ready to just quit their jobs or found themselves unhealthy or in a bad place. So that's the difference. People came at different times, but everybody needed the same thing, which was like self-care routines, how to get back on track, how do I manage my thoughts, which are overwhelming, and what do I need to do to prepare myself, for this new world, because it's never going back to the way it was before.
That's true. Well, I love that story. And I guess I hadn't thought about the coaching side of things. It's true. Anyone who's done team sports is used to having a coach. So I think that's an important thing to think about. I want to go back a little bit to optimal health and this idea, and I hadn't really thought about the definition of optimal health before. And so that was a little bit of a new one for me when you described that. One of the main themes that Julie and I talk about, and it's really kind of part of really the reason for being, is, work and life strategy for advertising and marketing professionals, and this idea of balance. And what is your philosophy on balance? Because I think you have an interesting philosophy on balance.
Yeah. So either what I found during my experience, maybe pre-coaching, was I was always seeking balance, but I felt out of balance. Then I thought there is no balance. So I'm just going to resign myself to feeling terrible and assuming that it's never going to happen. And what I've discovered as I started coaching more and more people is one of the things I always do in my coaching is I always say, let's identify early on, what are your core values? What are the things that you tell me and you tell yourself are important to you, right? And that could be family, it could be integrity, it could be love and compassion, service to others. There's a long list, right? We choose the list. And I ask everyone, pick your 10, like really pick your 10. I don't care that there's 50 that resonate with you. Pick your 10 and write them out in a bullet in a simple sentence of what this means to you in your life. And then we do an assessment of their current life. And we look at like 12 different areas of life and say, what is your satisfaction with these areas of life? And that's when we see the disconnect. When our daily life choices do not align to the things that we say are most important and valuable to us, we are out of balance. We may not be able to articulate it. And when we start making choices and direct our life to the things that we say are important to us, we find the balance we're looking for. It's not tied to the amount of hours you're working. It's not tied to, these things that we traditionally think of. It's not our boss. It's not, all these other things that sometimes we think are the challenge. It really is when we're not living a life in integrity with ourselves that I find is what balance is. And when you can figure that out and you start making different choices, that's when people start to feel much, much better.
So what are so if you could generalize, your clients, what are those top things that are normally out of balance? Because I'm sure there's gotta be some commonalities, right?
Yeah. And I'll give basic ones, right? Like if people say that their family is most important, but they don't make time to spend time with their family, or they're choosing to work more hours and then they're not available, or they're not fully present, right? You might be in the home right now, but still not mentally present or fully with the kids. That feels like then you're out of alignment. If you say that health and wellness is important, but you are not taking care of yourself, you're not making time for those things, you are out of alignment. When we say that faith is important, and yet, the majority of our thoughts are all fear-based, and we are focused so much on trying to control everything ourselves, there is no place for faith, right? So these are just some of the things that we start to pull apart. And then we are able to sort of create and design new lives. And that's what I help my clients do. Like at the end, what everyone wants? They want more joy. And that's the question I always ask everyone. We go through the different things, areas of life, and then we end with joy and say, how much joy do you have in your life? And there's two types of people who are able to say, I have joy every single day, and it's not dependent on their circumstances. And then there's people who think that joy is directly tied to their circumstances. And that's not joy. That might be happiness. I'm happy because I got this, or I'm happy because, I get to go on vacation, or I'm happy because, but the joy is something that you try to build, and it's more internal, and that takes a lot of work. And it's different for every single person. And it's when you define what that means to you, that you can finally start to make the choices that help you feel that every single day. And I do believe, and I don't think maybe it's naive. I want every single one of my clients to get out of bed super excited that they're alive, grateful for, everything they have, and to be able to do what they get to do. Because this is it. We have one spin. This is it. As far as we know, I don't want to debate past lives. Maybe we've had them, but maybe we don't remember them. Whatever it is, this is the only one we remember. And it's so short and it's so finite. Why not choose to be joyful every day? And that's what I spend time on with my clients. Now, of course, they come to me a lot of times and they're like, I want a new job and I'm unhappy because, but in the end, they end up visioning what they want their life to be up to like 10 years in advance and start making choices today to get there.
I love that.
Well, I want to so Kelly, before we move on, I wanted to discuss with you why we wanted to talk about burnout, because we talk, obviously our audience, the audience we're trying to create for this podcast, right, are marketing and advertising professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, probably women. We have a lot of women focused content.
Moms.
So we're going to riff here a little bit, Kelly.
I'm good at that.
What do you think are the things that could lead people in our profession to burnout specifically? And I'll start with one that comes to top of mind. Like, I feel like when you're working in an ad agency or even a marketing consultancy, the work is fast paced. Mm-hmm. There is not time of course, we all have plans, right? And we have Gantt charts and we have timelines and we are managing lots of different things to execute, let's say, a campaign or a project, right? But especially in the past 2 years, we've done all this planning. And then at the second before like an ad goes live, something with COVID or something like that hits and we have to change. And what does that mean? That means having to redo the work, which causes so much anxiety. And then we are absolutely not aligned. I feel like that is one of the newer things that have led to burnout. I think a second thing is, and this is probably maybe more a woman thing, but definitely a parent thing, is having everything all under one roof. Mm-hmm. Where we can't compartmentalize, I have to do this project and I have to write this, because those get mixed in with the homeschooling and the making the lunch and the changing the diaper or whatever it is. And that also, speaking from experience, has left me very unaligned. Which probably isn't necessarily just a marketing or advertising thing, but just wondering on your thoughts on that, Kelly.
Well, that's a loaded question, Julia.
Of course it is.
But I do have an answer, obviously, because I've been struggling with it just as you have. I mean, we called what you're talking about the COVID pivot, right? We started to talk about that in 2020, where literally in spring, we had to cancel media plans for our clients, pull back, reassess, re-strategize, go back and market, test this, test that, pull out, and so I think that the challenge with the last couple of years is there used to be kind of an ebb and flow to workflow where, okay, I'm not going to be as busy during the summer months, or maybe I'll be able to take a break in December and take a holiday over Christmas. I've never had a busier week in my career as I did the week before this Christmas. So things just are completely different. There's no same ebb and flow to business and to work as there was. And what's happening with COVID is obviously making us change and reassess our plans. Media habits have changed. Strategies have changed. Companies are reassessing, rebranding, relooking at all different types of business models. So on the work side of things, there's so much going on. So it's a constant flux of change, and it is hard to deal with. And I think for you and I, Julia, we work in small agencies. And so resources are few and far between. And I think when you're running at 100 miles an hour, it's hard to kind of stop and assess, and you don't have a lot of backup support. And so that is also a huge challenge because it's on you to sit and strategize and figure it out. And maybe you have some people to execute, but it's few and far between. And I think the biggest point is the blending between the blurring of the lines between work and home. And so while I may be working from home and I may be saving my 45-minute to an hour commute, for which I'm eternally grateful, and which is the whole reason why we have this podcast, because I had that extra time, it also means that I work longer hours. I start work longer. I rarely have breakfast. I rarely have lunch. I will work later. I can run down and do my laundry and check on my kids and all those sort of things. But the lines are really, truly blurred. And so I've worked significantly more hours in the last 2 years than I have in the past, because before I had to get home to get and pick up a child at a certain time. And I haven't, that's a change. So things have been completely shaken up. And so for me, what does that mean? Because my routines have been changed. I have not been working out as much, which I love. I have not been doing yoga, which I adore, and I absolutely intend to join Aneta's yoga class if I can get my butt out of bed and my proper sleep. That's the problem. I'm not sleeping as well, so I'm not having a harder time getting up. And then not, less energy at the end of the day, where I kind of just want to shut my brain down and watch Netflix because I'm so tired from so much work. So I feel that burnout desperately. And intuitively all the things that you need to do. You need to eat better, you need to exercise, you need to get your sleep. But making those things a priority, I think, is what I'd love to talk to you about, Aneta, to kind of help guide us, in that direction. And then on top of that, we're dealing with the fear and stress of COVID. And Julia, you don't know this, Julia's child just recovered from COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And you only had one child who had COVID, right?
Yep. Only one positive in a house of 5.
So I'm in a house of 6, and 2 of my kids tested positive for COVID 2 nights ago.
Oh no.
Yeah. So those 2 kids are home. They're fine, by the way. I mean, they were listening to AC/DC in the basement yesterday, lifting weights. So they're okay so far. That may change with fevers and such, but there's so much stuff going on, and balancing it all is been my challenge. So I've unloaded a lot on you, Aneta. And I don't mean this to be a counseling session, but that's where I felt the burnout. It's just, there is no line. I'm not getting the proper sleep I need. I'm not making my nutrition the priority because work is so intense. That's been the priority. And then the children, of course, that is always the priority, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, everything you guys say is so true. And I would say the routines is definitely a top concern for people and continues to be. So what I do when I do my wellness consulting classes and sessions, the Lunch and Learns, I always do a survey in advance. And so I have thousands of responses from folks over the last couple of years. And the biggest things that folks are saying, the biggest stressor is disrupted routines. And then the second is balancing personal and business because of the blurring. So you guys hit the number 2, and there's a long list of other things. And then some of the other things, the challenges that people are saying is they're constantly distracted. And I want to talk a little bit about something called cognitive overload. We are well connected on Teams and text messages and email and instant messaging and voicemail and voice memos. Like, anyone can get a hold of anyone at any given time, and they do without permission, right? So that is causing a lot of more anxiety. And by the way, 1 in 5 people, 40 million Americans, live with anxiety every day in this country. You're not sleeping, and neither are 70 million Americans. So that's, close to like 40% of the population is not sleeping enough. And by the way, women have a much higher percent of insomnia and sleep disorders than men, because I think our minds continue to race all night long, right? And then also you talked about no commute, and the commute, while it's stressful, what did it allow people to do? It allowed them to leave home, go into work, prepare their mind, maybe listen to a podcast, get ready. And then on the way home, what could they do? They could call someone, maybe they listen to the radio, or just sit in silence and not have anybody coming at you with anything, right? We struggle with putting ourselves first. And so it really goes back, like you said, we know the things we need to do. We have to choose putting ourselves first on the list, and then we're much better placed to be able to take care of everyone else as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, what kind of tips can you give us on tips and tools to help, reduce burnout, or, not get to the point of burnout?
Yeah. So I'll start up. Morning routines are very critical. So when we wake up in the morning, don't look at your phone. Do not turn on the news. Do not, I always say, do not consume someone else's agenda before you set your own. And that's what we do. When we pick up the telephone, check our email, listen to, the news, anything else, we are consuming someone else's perfectly curated agenda for us. And we're already off to, sending stress hormones through our body. We don't need to do that. And so it's like, carve out some time, even if it's 15 minutes, to do some deep breathing. Maybe you have a favorite book. My morning routine is I wake up, I write, I like to journal, just kind of get all the stuff out of my head. Sometimes they're dreams, sometimes worries, whatever it is. There's books that I pick up that are just positive. I have a calendar next to me that has like a really inspirational quote. Anything we can do to help set our intentions for the day in a positive way is really, really important. The average person has 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of those are negative, and about 80% of those are repeat. So these are like shards of glass that we are constantly consuming, right? And whatever our limiting beliefs are or our stories, those are things that go over and over again in our head. So we have a fighting chance if we choose to select some thoughts first before we allow those to come forward. I'm a huge believer in meditation. It's changed my life. Obviously, I teach the meditation group, but I really do believe that meditation is one of the things every single one of us should be doing. It helps us to really take control of our thoughts. It helps us to reflect, to go deeper within, to create a little bit of quiet and some space. And all the studies have shown that all you need is 12 minutes to really get full benefits of mindful meditation. Obviously, if you do more than that, it's even better. But it's not like you have to sit for an hour or so in meditation. You can pick 12 minutes, and no one is special. I always tell my clients, if they come to me and they say, well, I can't meditate, I have a very active mind. I say, you're not special. All of us do. Close your eyes, sit quietly, and just breathe. That's all you can do. And it gets easier and easier over time. And then take breaks. It is so important for us to take breaks, even if you just pick 1 minute an hour. I say, pick a mindful moment, a mindful minute. Stand up, close your eyes, look away, go outside, take a couple deep breaths, go make a cup of tea, whatever it is. Just take a couple of these moments. Put on your favorite song, right? If there's a song that lifts you up, I don't know, just laugh, whatever it is, just give yourself a little bit of a break. And all of that sends really good, feel good hormones through our body. You can even go outside, and that's really good. 2:55 in the afternoon is the least productive time for most people. So there's a reason why everyone crashes. Step away. Whatever you're doing, it's not going to be good. Whatever you're doing in that moment, it's not going to be your best work. Just take a moment, step away. Don't talk to anyone. Make a serious call at that time. I always tend to make, some tea, take some time, just watch the water boil, let it steep, come back, and I feel a little bit better. You can take a nap, 10 to 20 minutes, nothing longer, before 2 or 3 o'clock. Actually, the ideal time to take a nap is 7 hours after you wake up. So whatever you do, that's the best time to take a quick nap. And if you want to wake up feeling really energized, you can do a caffeine nap, which is drink a cup of coffee, go take a nap for about 20 minutes. And caffeine actually kicks in 25 minutes later. So then you will have had your nap and you had the jolt of caffeine and you're ready to go. So those are some things. And then in the evening, like you said, put those phones away, put the devices, any blue light away 60 to 90 minutes before. Start to dim your lights. My grandparents used to always have dark lights at night. And I said, this is really weird. They were onto something. You mimic nature. You start to dim the lights, your body, you send signals to your body that it's time to start to relax and rest and get your heart rate down. The phones are stimulating. It doesn't matter if you have blue light glasses, it's still super simulated activity. And do other things in the evening. I always say, if you have kids, you never threw your kids in bed and said, good luck, I hope you sleep well, right? I mean, it was like you gave them a bath, you read a story. Sometimes you'd have to scratch their back, you'd have to lay next to them, right? It was like a whole routine. And we've forgotten that. We think we can work until late hours or do whatever stimulation. And then we get into bed, close our eyes, and wonder why we can't fall asleep, right? I mean, it's just going back to some of the basic things that we used to do and reminding ourselves that those things are important. So those are some of the things I would say. I know it's a little long-winded, but I wanted to make sure that I covered at least some of the things that we can do from time we wake up to until the time we go to sleep.
Those are great.
Wow. Wow. Well, I love that. I think that's going to give us some really healthy tips. And I'm going to check in with you again in 30 days to once I start to try to actually put these things into practice. I really appreciate it, and definitely want to learn more. And can you talk about if people want to work with you, where can they find you? What's your website address? Talk about your 7 a.m. yoga class and your social channels if people want to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to post inspirational content pretty regularly. So I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me at Ardelia and Kuzma on LinkedIn. You can find me at Ardelia and Kuzma on Instagram. And I do have a private Facebook group, but I'm not as active there. I don't really use Twitter as much. But my website, I have a couple of different domains, but probably the easiest one is actually my name, Aneta Kuzma, AnetakUzma.com. or akuzmagroup.com. But I do one-on-one coaching. I also have a group coaching program that is starting up in February called Live the Width of Your Life for people that want to create in 6 weeks a brand new life for themselves. And then I do morning meditation and yoga. So I do at 6:45, I do a quick 15-minute little yoga class followed by 7 o'clock meditation, which is about 15 to 20 minutes. I always try to get everyone out before 7:20 so they can start their work day. It's on Zoom. You don't have to turn your camera on. Most people don't. They're still in their jammies. They have their dogs and their cats with them, whatever. But it's just a great way. It's an amazing community. And I do a different meditation every day. And then if you can't make it live, I send the recording out immediately afterwards. So a lot of ways to get a hold of me. And I would love to connect with your audience. And I just am so grateful that you guys put me on. This is such a huge topic right now, but I wanted to say that even a small change, even if you leave today, I want your audience to say, I'm going to do 1 or 2 things, and maybe start with sleep and then focus in on doing something, taking breaks or doing a morning routine. Just pick 1 or 2 things. Don't overwhelm yourself. We don't do really well when we decide to do 20 things at once. It'll last about a day, and then you'll curse me because you'll say it didn't work. But just start with 1 or 2 things, and over the course of the year, you can add more things on once you start to see the benefits. But you will see the benefits pretty quickly when we start investing in ourselves.
I am so excited. I feel better already.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Aneta.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a podcast review or send us a message at twomarketingmoms.com and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.